Do you have to like your savior's personality if you are in a situation under the hegemony of the Fulani Caliphate? No, I don't think you have to. The situation that we have today is a Tinubu is doing everything possible to dismantle and send into oblivion the northern power brokers. He is doing everything to sideline and then to push into the bench of what we call extinction, the Fulanis, who have been the one in charge of the Nigerian politics since 1960. Never have we seen the southern governors, all of them queuing behind one entity. And in this instance, unfortunately, it is someone that I do not revere, respect, or even adore. But this person seems to be carrying out an agenda that I think common southerner and even in the middle belt, all of them have always wanted, which is let us dismantle this so much powers that I do not think they have. As of today, we've had over 5 PDP governors decamping into APC, leaving only 2 governors left in PDP. And I'm sure these 2 governors might eventually migrate. The 2 remaining governors are Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State and, of course, the governor of what's it called in Bauchi State. Let me tell you what is going on. There's a simple ideology. Tinubu might not have come to fix the economy. Tinubu might not have come to do everything that we are clamoring for, of course, which are superficial. But I think Tinubu has come to restructure, to come and fix the foundational problem of the Nigerians' progress. You have to understand that for every time the Nigerian people want a progress, or shall I say, the southern and the middle belt people want to progress in their polity, in their economics, in their education, there is an obstacle that stands as a monster that impairs this progress, which has always been the northern oligarchs. You recall that when Jonathan tried to move so many reforms policies, when he tries to implement it, in fact, Jonathan spent over 150 billion to organize the confab that was ably led by Professor Oloyede. When it was time to implement, because we were told that first and foremost, the Nigerian military has to be rebalanced. We have to get to a position whereby we have the equal numbers of the 6 geopolitical zones being represented in the Nigerian army. Secondly, we were told that the high numbers of the northern representatives and senators in the House of Assembly needs to be rejigged so that it will represent what we call equitability and balance. And also we're told that even in so many parastatals that we need to begin to deploy and employ meritocracy. But we know how, as at 2014, when Jonathan tried to implement the confab, the North rose up in a word that he called the Northern Resistance, of course, that led to the revolution and the sweeping away of Jonathan's regime. Because, of course, a Tinubu, who is the president of today, wouldn't have single-handedly pushed Jonathan away, because it wasn't Tinubu that actually voted him out. It was the Northerners that voted him out. We have seen how Tinubu, when he came on board, when he said, let us have a new phase for Nigeria. First and foremost, he said, let us change the national anthem. In the national anthem, it needs to be represented that we have different tribes. Then we have the in tribes and tongues, though with in brotherhood we stand. Now, when that was implemented, that sent a very spinal shivering and shattering message to the North that Tinubu is trying to divide us. As a follow-up to that, Tinubu struck again. He said the Nigerian Air Force base, or should I say the aviation teaching base, that has always been domiciled since the 60s, 70s in just only one state, which is Kaduna. I want to scatter it. I want to make it into the 6 geopolitical zones. And today we have in Ebonyi, we have in Southwest, we have in Middle Belt. These are the moves that show clearly that even if Tinubu, for me, is not really a good person, Tinubu wants something that I want to be actually displaced, which is the northern powers. And in this instant, they say the enemy of my enemy is what? Is my friend. Unfortunately, with this my points of mine, I believe I have been able to convince and not confuse you as a fellow Southerner or a Middle Belton that if this agenda of Tinubu, if it pushes through, this is a first step in the right direction. The biggest challenge we have is not Tinubu in Nigeria. The biggest challenge that we have is breaking the northern oligarchs. And let me tell you another thing. Let me remind you. You will recall that when Buhari was there in power, Wike came out and he started fighting vehemently that we in the South, while we'll consume alcohol, for as long as alcohol is bad for our health, then let us also be the sole beneficiaries of every dividends, every revenue that is accrued from tax sales. Wike took that matter to court. We know how Buhari used the federal might to silence Wike. Until this very day, that case is yet to be decided in the Supreme Court of the land. Now, when Tinubu came on board, he said, we want to have critical reforms. These reforms have to do with what? Petrol subsidy removal, dollarization, unification of the dollar. We know how the North also came out. They were crying that no, this one has destroyed the business. We know what they were doing under Buhari. Under Buhari, what they were doing is they go into the CBN because they all have that pass. Every Bruno change. That's why you see that the people that are so highly, densely involved in Naira exchange business is because the Northerners have been able to colonize and personalize that sector. This is why you see that mostly those who are in the Bureau de Change business are the North. These are the parts of where they do all, where the source of their illicit funds, money laundering, whatever you can use, you can name, just name it. So when Tinubu came, he said, let us unify this thing, and then they sent out enforcement who went to Zone 4 in Abuja, started picking up those big illegal Bureau de Change merchants. And we saw Ali Undume went to the board, went to the national TV, started crying that his daughter has been sent away from Abuja to Lagos. Now, why is Tinubu trying to do this? Why is Tinubu trying to make the North uncomfortable? That Tinubu knows that the North owns the business of Bureau de Change. Who gave it that the Bureau de Change is a northern business? What skill is needed to be a Bureau de Change merchant? What skill? Buy dollar, keep dollar. When people need dollar, you had 1 token, 2 token, whatever rate the CBN has approved, them on a monthly basis or on a daily basis, that profit margin, you give it to them, you collect your naira. When people who want to travel, whatever the case is, that is what. But we have seen that the North are using that as their financial backing, and Tinubu broke it. Then Tinubu went ahead, let me have what we call the tax reform bill. We know how the tax reform bill was formed. The tax reform bill was simply, let me have a situation whereby those that are deriving the money, whenever they generate any fund on any value added services, VAT, or whatever the case is, if it's on alcohol, if 1,000 naira is what we generate from Lagos State, then the case should be Lagos State should have 40% of that, which is 400 naira. Then the 600 will go to the federal post. The federal government will take what they want to take, and then they share the remaining. But we know those that stood up vehemently and started campaigning against the tax reform bill, who started saying that no, that if Tinubu push this thing through, that it will make the North poor. That we saw how Professor Zulu, the governor of Maiduri, came on board and started speaking in Hausa. They took that matter into their religious centers. They started saying that Tinubu is anti-North, that Tinubu must be resisted, that Tinubu cannot bring a tax reform bill that will further impoverish the North, that despite the fact that the North are still struggling, are still lagging behind in development with the South, that one thing that gives the North money, which is of course the VAT, which is of course the what? The alcohol that is banned there in the North. However, allowed in the south, but they want to keep enjoying they want to be the major beneficiary of the monies. I mean, this level of hypocrisy, for one reason or not, this is one thing that I would support Tinubu for. That if he actually wants to carry out this agenda that I am speculating, that Oga, you want to keep breaking and crushing the wings of these northern oligarchs that have felt that Nigeria is at the back of their hand, that they can always do anything they want according to their own whims and caprices, that everybody must always bend on their knees to beg them for support. If Tinubu can successfully do this, I think it will extend the disintegration or the dissolvement and that's everything about Nigeria's unification, because there's only one figure saying that Nigeria should remain united, and these are the North, because they are the ones that are largely in the Nigerian army. The reason why why you think Nigeria is still united is not because of the Middle Beltons. It is not because of the people of Plateau. It is not because of the people of Benue. It is not because of the Yorubas. And definitely we know that it is certainly not because of the Igbos. The only reason why the Nigerian contraption is still structured as the way it is, where we think we are practicing federal system, this is not a federal system. In a true federal system, you should control your what? To control your resources. If we are going to have anything on exclusive list, I think it should just be security, which is the Nigerian army, and then maybe the foreign policies. Those we shouldn't have more than 5 things on the exclusive list. But in Nigeria today, we have over 50 something items on the exclusive list. So if you, as a northerner, when I find gold in there, in your land in Zamfara, according to the structure, it belongs to the northern people. But when they find gas or oil at the backyard of my house in Ikwere, it becomes the federal asset. Just how Buhari tried to say that, let us move the waterways, the water project, everything, they wanted to federalize it. These are the dangers whereby they move in and they try to commonize and also to federalize items. However, when we find resources in the north, somehow, some way, the south would not benefit from it. In the last 20 years, tell me what the south and the middle belt has benefited from the north, if it is not nothing but horror, problem, pains, agony, terrorism, poverty. Everything has been a log of burden for the south and even the middle belt. Today, the middle belt is almost consumed because of the uneducated children, because of the children that were born yesterday that the northern leaders failed to educate, that they have now become a willing tool of terrorism today. In the north, when Awolowo in the 70s, when they pushed that let us have what we call birth control system, when Obasanjo came, he said, with the way our population is surging, we need to have a system in place that will control our population, that we cannot just keep exploding. That if we want to keep exploding, then we need to become heavily productive. That is what will sustain the country. Then we started having family planning. We started having the implementation of family planning by primary schools, by primary health centers. We started having sex educations across board in secondary schools, in university. But even at that, we know what the northern clerics says. The northern clerics, they said that according to their religion, no constitutional right will stop them from giving birth to as much as they want, from getting married to as much as they want, that it is the commandment of God for them to multiply and keep multiplying, without putting into consideration that is the resources to take care of those children, are they there? And we can see that There are so many foot soldiers out there now that would protect the interest of a common northerner, which is, of course, the Islamization of the country. This is why we can see that the Nigerian barracks in Bruno, just yesterday, over 26 soldiers were bombed into hell. Unfortunately, this is where we are in Nigeria, whereby soldiers are being killed cold blooded, and the federal government, the state governments are what, helpless. They can't do anything. And in a couple of months, you'll be hearing that the Boko Harams, the bandits that perpetrated such evils, have dropped their gun, they are repenting, and they have been reintegrated, re-assimilated into the community. If this is what the agenda of unifying the southern governors and even into the middle belt is all about by Tinubu, that the north, their powers needs to be decimated, dissipated, then I am all for it. If Tinubu's agenda is just to win politics, then I hope he fails. But if he is trying to send a message that I want to dismantle anything called the northern oligarchs, the northern power brokers, we have to get to a situation whereby the likes of the Babangidas, the Abdul Salam are no longer relevant. The North will no longer see themselves as the decision makers in the Nigerian politics. The North must be put in their place, that they are not superior to the collective South or the collective Middle Belt when it comes to political decision making. If these are the agenda of Tinubu, I am all for it. Some days ago, Tinubu also came out and said that I will conduct the census even before 2027. When he said he was going to conduct the census, the North were happy. But then Tinubu now said, this census that I will conduct now will be a biometric setup, whereby your thumbs print will be taken, your facial features will be taken. Tinubu has said that every woman that wants to be counted are facial features, which simply means if they have a veil, they have to pull it out, capture the face, get the fingerprint. We want to really know the real population in the North, because we know that there are so many lies out there that cows and goats are being counted to add up to the mass, to pump up the populations of the North, whereby when it comes to allocation sharing, population also plays a very large role, and they use that to scam us in the Middle Belt and in the South. Everything Tinubu seems to be doing is anti, not oligarchs. And I think this is a good one for me, because I know that when the North gets provoked, when they get to that point and they feel that they have been held firmly by a man who is also a bigger evil, they will begin to sing the song of secession. Is that not what we have always prayed for? That Nigeria needs to divide. Is it that we divide into regionalism, or we all go into our own various nations? And this move of Tinubu, I think, is the right one that will provoke the North. Even if you are just joining, please kindly like, subscribe, and share. And bye for now.